Hello, dear friend. If you're watching this video, I believe that somewhere in your heart, there's a story that hasn't fully closed. Maybe it's about someone who came into your life deeply, intimately, truly, and then left, like smoke slipping through your fingers. And maybe you've asked yourself, why did they leave me? What did I do wrong? Or, weren't we supposed to have a different ending? For just these few minutes, I want to invite you to sit with me like two old friends and look more deeply into something we call in Buddhism short-lived karmic ties, or brief karmic bonds. Have you heard that term before? In Buddhist teaching, not every relationship is meant to last forever. Some people come into our lives not to stay, but to awaken something within us. And once that lesson is complete, they quietly move on. I remember a woman, a longtime practitioner in her 62nd, once said during a tea meditation session, "Master, I don't blame him for leaving anymore. I'm just grateful. Because of him, I finally learned how to be alone without feeling lonely." You see, we often confuse attachment with presence. We think someone being around us is the same as them being with us with compassion, clarity, and love. But they're not always the same. People come into our lives for many reasons. Sometimes to help us build something beautiful. Other times to help break something we've been clinging to too tightly. Sometimes they come to heal us. Sometimes to teach us how to let go of an image of love we've been attached to for too long. The Buddha once taught, "All things are impermanent. Every connection has a beginning and an ending." And what hurts the most is not that someone left, but that we resist the truth that they were meant to leave. Let me offer you this image. Imagine standing at a train station. A train arrives. Someone steps out, smiles at you, says a few words, some soft, some intense, and then boards another train and disappears into the distance. They were never meant to stay for the full journey. They were only meant to walk with you long enough to deliver a message, a lesson you hadn't yet learned. Maybe it was the lesson of letting go of someone you loved but could never keep. Maybe it was the lesson of forgiveness even when you never got the apology. Or maybe it was the lesson of learning to love yourself for the very first time after someone else broke you open. I once met a woman after her divorce. She had spent 10 years in silence, thinking she had failed. She told me, "I used to think he was my destiny, but now I realize he was the test for my self-worth." The truth is, people don't always show up as the one, but they always show up as the right karma. They may hurt us, but they're not always wrong. They come to reflect what we haven't yet healed. Our ego, our attachments, our illusions, we mistook as truth. Modern neuroscience now confirms something the Buddha pointed to long ago. Emotional memories, especially from deep relationships, leave literal marks in the hippocampus, etched like carvings in stone. And if we don't consciously process them, those marks become patterns, repeated pain, repeated cycles. But if we pause, breathe, and look deeply, as the Buddha taught through mindfulness, then those very wounds can become the doorway to spiritual freedom. Let me ask you, are you still carrying someone in your heart? A love that never had closure? A goodbye you never got to say? If so, I'm not asking you to forget. I'm simply inviting you to let go. Let go of the expectation that they'll return. Let go of the belief that things should have turned out differently. Let go of the pain you've wrapped around yourself, like armor. Let go so you have room to love yourself again. The person who came into your life and brought you pain might just be the person who helped your soul grow. And when you truly understand that, you'll no longer see separation as a loss. You'll see it as the completion of a sacred lesson. Today, I want to share with you a profound insight from Buddhist wisdom, something I've come to believe more and more as I grow older. Marriage is not just about love or destiny. It's also about karma. And the karma between two people, that invisible energy, shapes how peaceful or painful life together becomes. Have you ever seen a couple who's been together for decades? They may not be wealthy. They're not perfect. But somehow, they sit together each morning, sip tea, and speak with kindness in their voices. And then you've probably seen the opposite, too. Couples who seem to have it all. Yet the more time they spend together, the colder, harsher, more distant they become. So what makes the difference? In Buddhism, we'd say, it's the combined karma of both individuals. When a marriage begins, it's not just two people entering a relationship. It's two entire karmic histories merging into one. Their blessings and burdens, their light and shadow, their past actions all blending into an unseen field of energy that governs their connection. The Buddha taught, all forms are illusions, but karma is real. It's invisible, yet it shapes everything. In other words, you can't see karma, but you can feel its effects every single day. I remember a man in his 50s who came to one of my talks. He sat quietly for a long time. Then finally, he said, "Master, I love my wife so much, but we can't talk for more than 10 minutes without tension. It's like there's an invisible wall between us." I gently asked him, "Before this relationship, did you ever hurt someone deeply?" He lowered his head, stayed silent. Then, slowly, his voice shaking, he said, "Yes, I once betrayed a woman who loved me deeply. And now, I feel like my wife is treating me the way I once treated her." I told him, "That's karma. It's not punishment, it's a reflection. What we've done in the past often returns to us, in another form, through another person." Dear friend, when two people carry blessings into their marriage, they're more likely to forgive each other. They give space. They show gratitude. They don't let small annoyances kill something beautiful. But when the karma is heavy, even a single careless word or a misunderstood glance can trigger deep emotional wounds. And when karma takes the wheel, we often act in ways that don't even feel like us. It's like being driven by ghosts from the past. That's why it's so important not to choose a life partner purely from passion or surface attraction. Look deeper. Feel their energy. And most importantly, take an honest look at yourself. Are you living with gratitude? Have you been honest in your past relationships? Have you ever caused deep hurt and then refused to take responsibility? Because if we haven't yet built the inner foundation for peaceful love, we can't blame others when that love turns into pain. Marriage isn't a reward. It's a sacred opportunity to transform past karma and to generate new merit together. Modern neuroscience even shows this. Our most intimate relationships activate the deepest emotional regions of the brain: memory, pain reflexes, the longing to be seen, the fear of abandonment. Which means, marriage is the mirror that reveals our deepest karmic patterns in our everyday lives. Only with mindfulness can we begin to see that clearly. So we stop blaming and start transforming. One Buddhist student once asked me, "Master, what if the karma between two people is too heavy? Is there still hope?" I smiled and said, "When karma is heavy, we must let go more. Practice more. No one is sentenced to suffer forever." The Buddha taught, karma can be transformed through awareness, compassion, and conscious action. Do you believe that? Do you believe that if starting today you live differently, speak more kindly, plant new seeds of goodness, the energy between you and your partner could also shift? I do, and I hope you begin to believe it too. Because a relationship nourished by virtue and understanding can find peace, even after the longest storms. I want to invite you to pause for a moment. Set aside the to-do list, the noise, the endless things pulling you in every direction. Just sit with me for a few quiet minutes as we reflect on something I believe becomes more and more true the longer we live. In this life, people who share the same frequency of merit will naturally find their way to each other. Have you ever noticed? Some people enter a relationship and it's as if the stars align. The timing is right. The family is welcoming. Kindness flows naturally. There's mutual respect, support, and genuine love. While others, no matter how deeply they love, no matter how hard they try, always seem to end up in cold, distant families, filled with conflict, criticism, or emotional absence. Why is that? A spiritual teacher I deeply respect once said, "Merit is a subtle energy. Those who carry great merit will naturally attract peaceful conditions. But without merit, even deep love may lead you into environments full of suffering." Let me share with you a story. I once mentored a young woman, bright, successful, compassionate, but always heartbroken in love. She came to me one day, eyes tired from crying, and said, "Why do I keep ending up with men who lack kindness? I give them everything. I even try to love their families. But somehow, I always end up hurt." I looked at her and asked gently, "Have you ever truly loved yourself with gratitude?" And in that moment, she broke down. You see, she grew up in a household that lacked affection. She learned early on to overgive, to prove her worth through sacrifice. Deep down, she believed love must be earned through pain, that she had to suffer to deserve affection. That's what happens when we don't yet carry the inner strength of merit. We fall into relationships where we're working too hard to be loved, instead of being loved naturally, peacefully. Merit isn't some distant or mystical concept. It's built in how we live each day. It grows from how you care for your parents, how you treat strangers, how you keep your word, how you remain humble in hardship. Every act of goodness is like planting a flower in the garden of your life. And one day that garden will bloom, in the form of a spouse who sees your soul, in-laws who welcome you as their own, a partner whose heart matches yours in maturity and depth. The Buddha once said, "All beings meet through karma, but to meet in peace that comes from merit." Some people ask me, "Master, if I live kindly, does that guarantee I'll meet someone kind?" I say not immediately, but surely, eventually. As your energy changes, old patterns will fall away, and the right person will come like the first bird of spring. Not early, not late, just when the season is ready. So I ask you, are you cultivating your merit? Not just so someone will love you, but so that you become whole, grounded, beautiful from within, ready to receive the kind of love that doesn't need to be chased? Please remember this. Marriage isn't a lottery. The person you marry, the family you marry into, they are all reflections of your past choices, your thoughts, your actions, your habits of heart. You don't need to find a better person. You simply need to elevate the frequency of your own merit. One day, when your life is aligned in truth, kindness, and inner richness, someone will arrive with gratitude in their heart and tenderness in their eyes. And they will bring with them a family that accepts you fully, without effort. Because people who share the same merit will always find their way back to each other. Not early, not rushed, but surely and beautifully in divine time. I want to share a story with you today, not from a scripture or a book, but from real life, from something I personally witnessed. One afternoon, during a meditation class for older adults in California, a woman in her early 62nd approached me after the session. Her voice was as soft as a breeze. "Master," she said, "I don't think my husband loves me anymore. We live in the same house, eat at the same table, sleep in the same bed. But between us, there's this invisible wall. It hurts deeply." But then I started to wonder, has the love just disappeared? I looked at her for a long moment and gently replied, "Love doesn't disappear so easily. But when our hearts are still carrying unresolved karma, love can step back, making room for pain, for miscommunication, and for a quiet kind of distance that has no name. Have you ever felt that way? You're still living with someone you once loved deeply, but some days, their eyes don't look at you the way they used to. Some words feel cold, some silences stretch out like walls, and then the fear creeps in. Maybe love is gone, but the truth isn't always that simple. In Buddhist teachings, there's a profound insight. Karma isn't just about what you do. It's the emotions you haven't processed, the wounds you haven't healed, the things you haven't let go. Maybe you're still carrying an old anger, a pain you thought you buried, but it's still there, hidden in the sharp edge of your words, in the defensiveness of your tone, in the subtle distance you keep. And your partner, they're carrying their own load too. Two people, each with their own karmic baggage. And slowly, love runs out of room to breathe. It's like a river blocked by stones. The water isn't gone. It's just stuck. And to let it flow again, you don't wait for rain. You clear the stones. I once guided a couple in their late 62nd. They came to me when they were on the verge of separation. The wife said, "I just don't feel his love anymore." The husband lowered his head in silence. But after a few sessions of mindful dialogue and meditative reflection, he finally opened up, and what he said brought a stillness over the whole room. "I still love her. I always have. But I've felt unworthy since the day I hurt her. I thought she still resented me, so I stayed quiet, because I didn't know how to reach her anymore." You see, the love was still there, but it was buried under years of guilt, pain, and unspoken karma. Love doesn't vanish. It just steps aside, waiting for you to heal. And modern neuroscience now confirms this too. When we carry unprocessed emotional stress, our nervous system goes into a constant defense mode. We misread intentions. We react instead of respond. We lose the ability to connect deeply. So if you want love to return, it's not just about wishing your partner would change. It's about turning inward and refreshing the garden of your own heart. Ask yourself, what am I still angry about? What emotion am I holding in that I haven't voiced? What old wound is suffocating the love I still have? If you're asking those questions, this isn't the end. It's the beginning of something powerful. You can start with something simple. Maybe a quiet afternoon tea without blame. A soft look that doesn't guard. A gentle apology, even if you don't think you were wrong. Sometimes, that's all it takes. And love will return, like an old friend who never really left, just waited for you to open the door again. I believe that, and I hope you'll begin to believe it too. True love doesn't disappear. It just waits for us to soften so it can come home. I'm not here to preach anything lofty. I just want to sit with you for a few quiet minutes and talk about something I believe everyone who's ever loved has felt, even if we didn't have the words for it at the time. It's this: the person you love isn't just someone you chose. They're the lesson your soul needed to learn. Have you ever looked back on a past relationship and wondered, why did I choose that person? Why did it hurt so much to love them? And yet, why did I grow so much through it? I remember a woman in her 40s once sat in front of me, tears running down her face. She said, "Teacher, I went through a relationship that nearly broke me. I was betrayed. I was deeply hurt. But without that relationship, I would have never learned how to love myself. I never realized how emotionally starved I was until I met him." I smiled, not because I was happy she suffered, but because I knew she was finally seeing the truth. When you begin to see the other person as a mirror, reflecting the parts of you that still need healing, you've started learning the deeper lesson that relationship came to teach. In Buddhism, there's a beautiful term, karmic resonance. It means the people you attract are always in harmony with the karma you carry. They're not perfect. They're not completely wrong either. They come into your life to shine a light on the wounds still waiting to be healed. If you've always craved validation, you may attract someone who constantly makes you prove your worth. If you've struggled to trust, you might attract someone who triggers your deepest doubts. If you never learn to protect your own heart, you may meet someone who forces you to finally say, no. Some people come to teach you how to love. Some come to teach you how to let go. Some come to remind you, you cannot keep living the same way, not if you want to love with awareness. And often, the most painful lessons are the ones we needed most. As the Buddha taught, in the fire of suffering lies the seed of awakening, if you know how to look deeply. I'm not saying you have to feel grateful for everyone who's hurt you, but I hope just maybe you'll begin to look back, not with blame, but with clarity. Ask yourself, what did I learn from that person? Have I come to love myself more because of what happened? And am I now repeating the same lesson with someone new, just because I didn't fully learn it the first time? I once asked an older student, if you could go back to the beginning, would you choose that person again? She smiled, not a light smile, but one that had walked through storms. I don't know if I'd choose him again, but I do know without him I wouldn't be the woman I am today. That, right there, is the mark of spiritual maturity. Grateful for the lesson, but no longer stuck in the role. Aware of the karma, but no longer identified with the pain. You see, love isn't just about emotional fulfillment. It's part of your awakening journey. And the one you love is also helping you wake up, not with sweet words or fancy gifts, but with truth, with challenges that push you to come home to yourself. So the next time you meet someone, try to look beyond the surface, beyond the chemistry, and ask yourself, what lesson is this person touching in me? And more importantly, am I willing to learn it without blame, without running, without trying to control everything? If the answer is yes, then whether that relationship lasts 1 year or a lifetime, you'll come out of it with a deeper soul, a steadier heart, and a self you finally come home to. Because in the end, real love is a journey back to yourself, and the one you love is the sacred mirror guiding the way. There's a truth many of us have felt, not with our minds, but with our hearts. Sometimes you love someone deeply, but what you receive in return isn't love. It's silence. It's betrayal. Or worse, it's the kind of pain that makes you lose faith in yourself. Have you ever gone through that? I've met many people who came to the temple and sat with me during quiet, private conversations. They didn't come to ask about Buddhist philosophy. They simply placed a hand over their heart and asked, "Teacher, I live kindly. I love with all I have. So why do I keep meeting people who hurt me? One middle-aged woman once said, "I've never betrayed anyone. I've always been the one to give in, to think of others first. And yet I was deceived. I was abandoned." I listened in silence for a moment. And then I said gently, "My dear, kindness is a beautiful seed. But sometimes old karma hasn't been resolved yet, and your current blessings aren't yet strong enough to fully protect your heart." You see, in Buddhism, blessings aren't just about money or health. They're also the spiritual energy that protects your emotional well-being. A person with strong blessings in love won't be easily broken. Even when relationships end, they still carry peace within. But someone with weaker blessings often finds themselves drawn to unclear, manipulative, or emotionally dishonest relationships. The Buddha once taught, "Those who live with sincerity and moral discipline will be protected by their merit." In other words, when you live mindfully, you not only create new blessings, you also develop the inner clarity to recognize unhealthy people before they get too close. But if your heart is clouded by emotional hunger or the fear of being alone, you may end up settling, trading your self-worth just to feel a small flicker of love, even if it isn't real. I once sat with a man in his 52nd who had been through 3 marriages. He said, "Teacher, I don't understand why I keep repeating this pattern. I fall in love, I get used, and then they leave." After some time together, I asked, "Have you ever hurt someone in the past at any point in your life?" He lowered his head for a long time, and then he admitted, "I deeply hurt the first woman I was with. And honestly, I never apologized." I looked at him and said, "Life isn't punishing you. It's just that old karma keeps cycling until you stop and finally make peace with it." You see, love isn't just about emotions. It's the reflection of your karma and your blessings. Those with blessings may not be the most expressive, but they still attract partners who respect and value them. Those without blessings may love with sincerity, yet still end up hurt by people who don't know how to love them back. So what can we do? The answer isn't to close your heart. It's not to distrust everyone. It's to begin the practice from within. Start by training your mind to know the difference between craving and genuine love. Train your actions to stay honest, to uphold your values, to live with gratitude and kindness. Because every mindful act, every time you resist the temptation to settle for less, you're planting seeds of protection for your future relationships. You can't change the past, but you can build new blessings, like tending to a small tree, until one day it's strong enough to hold love that won't be shaken by any storm. I've always believed this, and I hope you'll begin to believe it too. True love comes when your heart is clean, and your blessings are strong enough to help you recognize who's truly meant to stay, and who simply came to teach you how to let go. Today, I want to invite you to reflect with me on something that sounds simple, but if you look deeply, you'll see it's a quiet truth that holds profound wisdom. No one can truly enter someone else's home without the right karmic connection and enough spiritual blessings. Have you ever wondered why some people are welcomed into a family like they've always belonged, while others, no matter how hard they try, never seem to be fully accepted? Some people marry into a family and are embraced like a daughter or son. And then there are others for whom every meal feels like a performance, every conversation a silent endurance. I once spoke with a woman in her 52nd who had been living in the U.S. for over 20 years. She told me quietly, "Teacher, I love my husband, but every time I visit his family, I feel like a stranger. No one openly dislikes me, but I can feel it. I don't belong." And I gently asked her, Do you believe that to truly belong in someone's home, it takes more than a marriage certificate? That perhaps it also requires an invisible document called merit? In Buddhism, we call this shared karma, collective karma, and individual karma. You can love someone deeply, but if you and their family don't share enough karmic harmony from the past, if the collective karma isn't aligned, then even a legal marriage won't guarantee full acceptance. Blessings merit aren't something you can borrow from someone else. Loving someone doesn't automatically mean their family will love you. Being kind doesn't always mean others will open their hearts to you. Because blessings don't only come from what you do today. They also come from what you've done in past lives, in past relationships, and in how you once treated someone else's family. I remember an older Buddhist practitioner who had 2 sons, both married. One daughter-in-law he adored like his own. The other he didn't dislike her. But something just didn't click. I asked him, "Do you think you're being unfair?" He paused for a long time, then said with sincerity, "Teacher, I don't mean to be. But with one of them, I felt connected from the moment we met. With the other, there's always been this distance I can't explain." I said, "That's karma. Maybe there's a karmic thread, a spiritual connection from a past life that makes your heart open naturally to one and not the other. You see, entering a family isn't just about stepping into a house. It's about entering a shared karmic field. And to stay in peace within that space, you need both karmic alignment and spiritual merit. It's like planting a seed. You can't just throw it in the ground and expect it to grow. It needs the right soil, the right season, the right environment. Love is the same. It's not just about 2 people. It's also about the environment they must live in together. And that environment, the family, is where the depth of your blessings is most clearly revealed. So if you're in a relationship where their family doesn't fully welcome you, don't be too heartbroken. And don't exhaust yourself trying to win their approval. Instead, ask yourself gently, is it possible that we don't share the karmic connection from the past? Could it be that I need to cultivate more merit? Not just to be loved, but to be accepted naturally, without force, without strain? The Buddha once said, "A single wholesome thought will one day bear a wholesome result." And I believe if you live with sincerity, without resentment, without pressure, without pushing yourself to fit in, then even if you're not fully accepted today, your blessings will eventually bloom in another relationship, in another home, in another lifetime perhaps, where love flows to you like something that was always meant to be. You can't force yourself to belong where the karmic doors are still closed, but you can practice enough inner goodness that wherever you go, hearts naturally open without you needing to push, because even a closed door can open on its own. When the one standing before it carries enough karmic grace and spiritual merit. Today, I want to share something that might help you look at your marriage with a different lens. I once told a group of older Buddhist students, "You don't need to move into a monastery to be a true practitioner. If you can stay in a marriage with patience, compassion, and the ability to let go, you're already practicing deeply." We often think of spiritual practice as chanting sutras, ringing bells, or meditating under a tree. But the real place of practice, the most challenging and the most honest, is right in the heart of your closest relationship, marriage. Have you ever felt that? Living with someone, seeing each other every day, hearing each other breathe, sharing meals, chores, even silence. And yet, on some days, one careless comment, one tired glance, one long pause can hurt more than we expect. Those moments, those small, quiet tensions, They are your invitations to practice mindfulness right at home. Marriage isn't where you go to find perfection. It's where you meet impermanence head-on. The person you loved yesterday might be irritable today. The peace you felt this morning might be shaken by evening. It's where you practice presence, staying grounded when emotions rise. And it's where you learn to let go of small resentments, of the urge to change your partner, of clinging to ideals that life can't always meet. I remember a lay practitioner in California, he was over 70, who said to me one morning during meditation, "Teacher, I've been married to my wife for 45 years, and if not for this marriage, I don't think I would have ever learned what true patience really means." I asked, "Patience with her?" He smiled. "No, patience with myself. Because what triggers me most in her is usually something I haven't fully accepted in me." You see, marriage is a mirror that never stops reflecting. Your partner isn't just your companion. They are also the one who shows you your own ego, your reactions, your expectations. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha once said, "Living with another person is difficult, but for those who practice in family life, the blessings are immense." Why? Because in a monastery, you're supported by silence, structure, and rules. But in marriage, you face real, raw, daily life. There's no temple bell reminding you to meditate. Just life. Messy, beautiful, emotional life, offering you the choice. Wake up or fall asleep. React or reflect. Love or hold on to pride. I often say, if you can stay kind when your partner is angry, if you can listen without defending yourself, if you can say, "I'm sorry," even when you're not sure who's at fault, then you're already practicing. Marriage is advanced practice. There's no formal lecture, no written mantra, just the daily, sometimes painful, always sacred curriculum of learning how to love. And here's what matters most. You're not practicing alone. You're practicing inside a relationship. And if both of you are willing to look deeply, to soften, to love with awareness, then marriage becomes more than a bond. It becomes a living spiritual path. Every shared meal is a meditation. Every disagreement becomes a chance to understand. And every time you hold hands again, it's a silent vow to begin anew. So if you're in a marriage, even if it sometimes feels heavy, distant, or not what it used to be, pause. Ask yourself, is this the Dharma lesson I'm being called to live out? Not in a temple, not on a retreat, but right here, in the middle of this ordinary sacred life? I'd like to sit with you for a few quiet minutes and talk about a question I believe many of us have whispered, sometimes through tears, sometimes with hope. When will I finally meet the right person? It's such a human question, so raw, so real. But after more than 40 years as a monk, having witnessed countless relationships fall apart and come back together again, I'd like to offer you a deeper reflection. The right person isn't someone you wait for. They're someone you grow into. I've met women in their 52nd and 62nd, some divorced, some never married, still carrying a quiet ache inside them. They'd say, "Teacher, why do I keep meeting the wrong people?" And I'd look at them not with judgment, but with deep compassion, and gently ask, "Have you become the person you're hoping to meet?" Silence. Because that's the one question most people forget to ask themselves. We often imagine the perfect partner, someone who understands us, respects us, never hurts us, shares our values. But how often do we ask, am I grounded enough in my own peace? Do I truly value and take care of myself? Am I honest in the way I love? Have I matured enough to stop needing control and still trust in kindness? In Buddhism, there's a beautiful teaching. If you want to know your past life, look at your present conditions. If you want to know your future, look at your actions now. And this doesn't just apply to karma in general, it holds true for love and relationships too. The person you meet is the result, but you are the cause. If you're still carrying wounds that haven't healed, if you're still blaming someone from the past, if you're still afraid of being abandoned, then even if you meet a kind person, it's hard to create peaceful love. Why? Because you might misread their intentions, constantly stay on guard, or struggle to trust, and that fear alone can sabotage what you long for most. I once guided a young Buddhist woman who had experienced several painful breakups. She told me, "I used to think I was just unlucky in love, but after studying meditation and the teachings, I realized I wasn't yet mature enough to hold a mature love." And I believe that was her turning point. Not when the next man came along, but when she changed. Dear friend, love doesn't come from outside. It starts with the energy you're living in. If you live with gratitude, you'll draw in people who also live with gratitude. If you lead with sincerity, you'll attract people who don't wear masks. If you live with kindness, courage, and compassion, then the right one won't just appear, they'll stay. Because you've already become a warm, safe home. Yes, I believe in timing. I believe in soul connections. But if all you do is sit and ask, when? Then you're stepping back from the journey that's asking you to step forward. So instead of asking, when will I meet the right one? I invite you to pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, am I becoming the right one? If that question is asked with honesty and courage, it opens a whole new path, a path where you're no longer chasing love. You're becoming it. A path where you're not just hoping to lean on someone, you're becoming someone so grounded, others find strength in your presence. And when you become the best version of yourself, the right one is no longer a mystery, because they'll arrive without chasing, without forcing, without fear. They'll arrive simply because you're real, and real love always finds its way home. I want to sit with you for a moment like two old friends having a quiet conversation on a peaceful afternoon. Not to talk about anything lofty, but just to gently reflect on a truth that's simple, yet deeply felt. If you haven't healed from old wounds, you'll carry them into every new love. I once spoke with a man in his 62nd who had been through 2 painful divorces. The first ended because of jealousy. The second also because of jealousy. He sat across from me, his voice heavy with regret. I always thought it was because they were unfaithful. But now, I wonder if it was me. Maybe I just couldn't trust anyone. Have you ever felt that way? You step into a new relationship, but the pain from the past is still there. You doubt someone's care. You flinch at their affection. You brace yourself for hurt, as if it's not, if it will happen, but when. That's not love. That's an old story being replayed on a new stage. And when your heart hasn't healed, even the kindest person will be seen through the lens of your past. There's a teaching in Buddhism that speaks to this. No outer situation causes suffering. We suffer because the mind is still clinging to what is past. In other words, the person who comes into your life doesn't bring the pain. You bring the pain into the relationship. I want you to imagine this. You're carrying a glass of murky water. Everywhere you go, you offer someone a drink. Even if they're kind, even if they're thirsty, that water can't nourish them. And eventually you might say, why can't anyone love me the way I deserve? But the answer isn't more effort or better timing. It's simply this. You need to empty the old water. Wash the glass clean. Only then can you offer someone something clear. something new. The same is true for the heart. If you're still angry at someone who left, still grieving something that ended, still aching from a love that never healed, then the next relationship will just be a repetition. Different name, different face, same old crack running through it. I once witnessed a woman who had spent over 30 years in the shadows of a broken marriage. She finally stepped out, not to find someone new, but to find herself. She began writing letters to her ex, not to send, but to release the pain. She meditated every morning, read sacred texts, and slowly learned to look back on her past without bitterness. One day, she came to the temple and told me, "Teacher, I'm no longer waiting for someone to come, but I know if someone does come, this time I won't love out of fear of losing. I'll love from the peace I've found in myself." And I smiled, because that's when love truly begins. Not because you found the right one, but because you are no longer the same. Dear friend, you don't need to rush into a new relationship to forget the last. Instead, turn inward and ask, have I truly forgiven the past? Have I understood what that pain was trying to teach me? Am I placing old defenses on someone who's never hurt me? The Buddha said, letting go doesn't mean throwing something away. It means setting down what no longer supports awakening. If a past relationship has ended, let it pass like the rain after a long season. Don't hold on to the puddles, only to slip again in your own memories. Dry the floor. Let the sun in. Prepare your heart like a new room, warm and bright, not to hide your loneliness, but to share the wholeness you've cultivated within. If you're still carrying an old wound, I invite you, don't rush to love someone new. Love yourself first. Love with patience. Love with gentle steps toward peace. And if you need someone to walk that path with you, I'm here, not to give answers, but to walk beside you as you become the kind of love that doesn't repeat the old pain. Because this time, the one who loves will be someone new. You. I want to invite you to sit with me for a while, not to talk about love through the lens of romance, but to see it as a path of maturity, where two people don't try to possess one another, but become mirrors that help each other grow. I once heard an older Buddhist practitioner share during a tea meditation, "Teacher, I realize now, I loved him so much, but it was that very love that made me want to hold on tightly. And the tighter I held on, the further away he felt." I looked at her and gently said, "Perhaps that wasn't pure love, but fear wearing the mask of love." Have you ever felt something like that? When we love someone deeply, we often want them to belong to us. Their gaze, their words, their thoughts. We want them to never change, never leave, never let anyone else in. And over time, a natural longing can quietly become possession, even if we don't call it by that name. There's a beautiful teaching in Buddhism. True love is the wish for the other to be happy, even if that happiness is no longer with you. That might sound contradictory to how most people understand love. Because we're used to conditional love. If you love me, you won't leave. If you truly care, you won't change. But here's the truth. People do change. They do leave, even when we love them with everything we have. And if we see love as a form of ownership, we'll suffer when that change comes. But if we see love as a form of light, we can smile, even as they walk a different path, and send them on with a quiet blessing in our heart. I once met a man in his 70s. He told me his wife had passed away over 10 years ago. Yet every morning, he still rose early, made tea, and sat quietly on the porch just like they used to do. I asked him, Do you still feel sadness?" He smiled, eyes soft like morning mist. "No, teacher. I no longer feel sorrow. I just feel gratitude, because she taught me how to love without needing to hold on." The day she passed, I didn't feel bitterness. She left in peace. And I knew then love doesn't live in staying. It lives in how we remember each other. You see, love can outlast even time, but only if we don't try to lock it inside the walls of ownership. True love is where two people look into each other's eyes and feel inspired to become better humans, not to impress the other, but because the other reflects back what's still hidden, still growing inside us. They help us see how we can be more patient, more present, less selfish. The Buddha once taught, "A true companion on the path is like a mirror, reflecting back your true self." And I believe that even in romantic love or marriage, there are people like that. They may not belong to us forever. They may not stay. Some might even hurt us, but they help us grow. Sometimes, the one who caused the pain is the one who awakened your strength. Sometimes, the person you couldn't hold on to was the one who taught you what unconditional love really means. And sometimes, the greatest love isn't holding on to someone, but holding on to the light they left in you. Dear friend, if you're loving someone right now, or remembering someone you once loved deeply, I invite you to ask yourself, am I loving them like a lamp or like a lock? To love like a lamp is to help them find their way even if they walk away. To love like a lock is to keep them confined even if they're no longer the person they once were. I hope you choose to be the light, because when you shine for someone else, you shine for yourself too. I want to invite you to sit with me for a moment, not to dissect the questions, why did they leave me? Or, why did that person come into my life only to walk away? But to gently explore every encounter in life through the lens of karma and merit. Have you ever met someone and felt like you already knew them? From another lifetime, perhaps? They entered your life, left behind a light or a wound, and then quietly disappeared? Or maybe there's someone who never left, someone who stayed by your side, even when you never asked them to, as if some invisible thread kept you connected. I've heard hundreds of stories like that. Different people, different circumstances. But seen through the eyes of the Dharma, they all share one truth. No one comes into your life without karmic connection. And no one leaves without karma and merit moving together. I remember an older Buddhist practitioner once told me, her voice trembling, "Teacher, I once believed he was my soulmate, but one day he left without a word. I felt betrayed. I felt broken. And for over a decade, I silently carried that pain." I gently asked, "And now, looking back, what do you see?" She looked down at her teacup and sighed. "I see now. He came into my life to remind me of something I'd forgotten, my self-worth. You see, people don't come and go randomly. They are reflections of past karma and the unfolding of present merit. If you've ever hurt someone, sometimes the person you love the most will hurt you, not to punish you, but to bring your blind spots into the light. And if you've ever helped someone with a pure heart, a time may come when someone enters your life, carrying a gratitude you never even asked for. Love, connection, even resentment, they all flow within the current of karmic cause and karmic result. And here's the important truth. No one arrives too early. No one leaves too late. They come exactly when a lesson is ready to be learned. And they leave when that lesson has been completed. I want you to picture this. Your life is like a giant mirror. Every person you meet is a reflection in that mirror. If your mirror is clean, you'll see clearly. If it's clouded, the image will look distorted. So clean the mirror before you blame the reflection. In other words, work on your inner world. Instead of hoping the next person will be more perfect, stay longer, or love you more completely. The Buddha once said, "All phenomena are empty, but karma never misses its mark." Everything changes, but karma doesn't lose its way. Karma shapes connection. Connection shapes relationship. And your merit determines whether that relationship will bring joy or sorrow, whether it will be fleeting or lasting. Now, I don't share this with you so you can blame karma or use merit as a spiritual excuse. I share it because I hope that when someone enters your life, you'll treasure them like a guest passing through your soul's home. And when someone leaves, you won't cling, but instead bow gently and whisper, "Thank you," because they came bearing the fruit of your past, and they left planting the seed of your growth. You may not be able to control who enters your life, but you can control how you show up to greet them. You may not change your past karma, but you can absolutely create new merit today so that the next soul who walks into your life brings peace, not pain. So if you're mourning someone who's gone, or anxious about someone who's just arrived, I invite you to return to yourself, gently, kindly, with compassion, because every meeting happens exactly as it's meant to. No more, no less, never wrong. I want to invite you to pause with me for a moment, not to dwell on someone who hurt you in the past, but to gently turn inward, to the place where that old pain might still be living, quietly, unspoken, unnamed. Have you ever wondered, why do I keep attracting the same kind of people? The ones who disappear without a word. The ones who make you feel like you're not enough. The ones who hurt you, apologize, then hurt you again. I once asked a student in her 52nd divorced twice, and now in a shaky third relationship, "Do you notice any pattern between the men you've loved?" She paused, then whispered, "They all made me feel like I wasn't chosen." And then she broke down in tears. "It's like I keep reliving the wound from when I was a child, when my parents separated, and I always felt like I was the one left behind." Do you see? Unhealed wounds have a way of repeating themselves, not because you're unworthy of love, but because your heart is still carrying an old map of pain. And when that map isn't updated, you'll unknowingly lead yourself right back to where it hurt. The Buddha said, "The mind is the forerunner of all things. If the mind is tainted, suffering follows like a cart follows the ox." If there's a wound in your heart that hasn't been tended to, you don't have to go looking for people who hurt you. Karma will arrange it for you, not as punishment, but as a lesson still waiting to be learned. You might meet someone new, kind, patient, gentle, but then you start to doubt them, not because they did anything wrong, but because you still don't believe you're worthy of peaceful love. So you act out the old story. You push them away, test them, or silently wait for them to leave. And eventually they do, almost like you unintentionally invited it. Imagine this. You're walking through the world with an invisible sign hanging around your neck that says, "I've been betrayed. I don't trust love." And the people who read that sign are those vibrating at the same frequency. They step into your life, and just like the sign says, you can't trust them. Not because they're inherently bad, but because you haven't taken that sign off yet. Can you recognize any repeating patterns in your love life? Have you ever asked yourself, why do I keep attracting this same kind of energy? If so, this is your chance, your moment to turn inward and listen to what your heart is still carrying. Because once you begin to heal, you won't need to avoid the wrong people. You'll simply stop attracting them. When you no longer believe that love must come with pain, you won't stay with people who love you through control or fear. When you forgive your past, you'll stop living as if every new person is part of that old story. I remember an older Buddhist woman living alone for over 10 years after a painful marriage. She once said to me, "Teacher, I don't feel like I need anyone anymore, but I'm finally feeling at peace. In the past, I just wanted someone to come and love me the right way. Now I see I needed to love myself the right way first." And you know what? Not long after that, she started meeting kind, genuine people. Not because they suddenly showed up, but because her heart had changed. Dear friend, if you find yourself caught in the same painful relationships, don't rush to blame fate. Turn inward and ask, is there a wound in me that's still waiting to be seen? Is there a part of me that's never been held in compassion? Start there, because once you begin to heal yourself, you won't need others to show up just to teach you through pain. The people who come next, they'll come to share light with you, not to touch your shadows. I'd like to invite you to sit down with me, like two old friends sharing a quiet cup of tea in the late afternoon. Not to talk about fairy tale love, and not to chase after some perfect ideal, but to look a little deeper into what really allows a relationship to go the distance. And I want to begin with something simple, yet profound. A lasting relationship doesn't have to be perfect, but it absolutely does require two people who are willing to learn from each other and grow together. I once met an elderly couple who had been together for over 45 years. The husband said, "We're not really that compatible, to be honest. She's meticulous, I'm laid back. She loves quiet, I talk too much. And yet, somehow, we've made it through half a lifetime." I asked, "What made you stay together?" He smiled and said gently, "Because we learned from each other, not to change the other person, but to reflect on ourselves." Have you ever felt that way? Have you ever believed that a good relationship should mean instant connection? No arguments, no hurt feelings, no missteps? The truth is, every relationship comes with conflict. The question isn't whether differences will arise, but how two people walk through those differences together. There's a beautiful teaching in Buddhism. There are no perfect people, only people willing to return and correct themselves. And I believe that true love is when two people use the relationship like a mirror to see the parts of themselves that are still unfinished, still evolving. Maybe the other person makes you angry, but that anger is calling you to practice patience. Maybe they make you feel abandoned, but that insecurity is asking you to come home to your own self-worth. Maybe they fall short of your expectations, and that's an invitation to soften your ego and learn how to love the real person in front of you, not just the idea you had of them. I once met a woman in her 62nd, in a marriage that wasn't romantic by movie standards, but was deeply meaningful. She told me, "Teacher, my husband's not the sweet or expressive type. But over time, I learned not to keep hoping for what he couldn't give. And then I realized he loves me in a way I'd never noticed. Quietly, but steadily." You see, none of us are born knowing how to love well. We all learn. And the best place to learn is in the relationship you're already in. A couple doesn't need to be the same. They don't need to agree on everything. But if both people are willing to stay, willing to grow, willing to heal, then that relationship becomes a kind of spiritual journey. Not perfect, but deeply meaningful. Just like meditation, you don't reach enlightenment on day one. You wander, you forget, You get distracted, and slowly, you become more grounded. Love is the same. There will be moments when you want to give up, go silent, or run away. But if you choose to stay, not to suffer, but to learn, to rise, to walk together, then that love becomes more than love. It becomes part of your awakening. The Buddha once said, "A companion who is patient and mindful is as precious as meeting a true spiritual friend on your path." If you have someone who's willing to grow with you, sit beside you when you're tired, stay quiet when you need space, and cheer you on when you pass a hard lesson, that's a bond worth cherishing. You don't need to wait for a perfect person to have a meaningful relationship. Just ask, are we learning from each other? Are we helping each other live a little more awake each day? If the answer is yes, then even with your flaws, you already have something strong, something real, something worth holding. I want to invite you to reflect with me on something I believe is deeply familiar to all of us, and yet something we rarely stop to look at clearly. When the heart is small, love feels tight. That's why the more selfish we are, the more fragile our relationships become. But the more spacious and generous our heart is, the more room happiness has to stay. I once listened to a man in his 60-second share about a marriage that had lasted more than half his life. He said, "You know, back when I was younger, I thought love meant holding on to the other person, holding everything exactly the way I wanted, holding their attention, their loyalty, sometimes even their thoughts." He smiled gently, then added, "But I held on so tightly. At some point, the love couldn't breathe anymore." Eventually, he and his wife grew apart, not because they stopped loving each other, but because love had become too cramped inside a heart that had no space. Have you ever felt something like that? Loving someone so much, you want them to understand you exactly, act how you expect, and fit the image in your mind of how love should look. And when they don't, you get hurt. You pull back. You get silent. You expect them to change, while forgetting to widen your own heart enough to understand why they are the way they are. The Buddha taught, a person who truly knows how to love is one with a boundless heart. What does that mean? It means that love can only survive and grow in a space filled with understanding and compassion, not in a box made of control and expectations. I want you to imagine this. Love is like a small tree growing. If you plant that tree in a pot that's too tight, you can water it, feed it, care for it, but the roots won't have room to stretch. Eventually, it will suffocate and wilt, not because you didn't love it, but because your heart wasn't spacious enough to hold it. Now, let me be clear. Having a spacious heart doesn't mean tolerating everything. It means you're able to take a step back, breathe before reacting, and view things from a gentler, wider lens. You stop labeling everything as right or wrong so quickly. You begin to ask, are they just tired? Could they be reacting from an old wound? Am I placing too many unspoken expectations on them? A Buddhist woman once shared with me, "I realized that every time I was harsh with my husband, I was actually running away from something lacking inside myself." I paused for a moment and said, "Then you've already started to see the pain isn't in the other person. It's in the part of your heart that hasn't opened yet." Dear friend, no one wounds us more deeply than our own unspoken expectations, and no one heals us more powerfully than the compassion we offer to the ones we love. I'm not saying you should always endure, but I believe if you can take a step back before reacting, breathe deeply before lashing out, and listen before judging, Then love in you will begin to breathe again, and the person next to you will feel safer, free to be themselves. No relationship can stay strong if each person is only fighting to be right. Only when the heart is big enough can love become deep enough. Because depth doesn't come from intensity. It comes from having enough space for two people to truly be themselves and grow together. So if your relationship feels cramped, don't rush to blame the other person. Ask your own heart, am I holding too tightly? Can I loosen just a little through understanding, gratitude, or forgiveness? Because sometimes, just a little softening can bring love back like a breeze into a room where the windows have finally been opened. If today you're in a relationship, or if you've ever walked through a love that left you with more questions than answers, I'd like to invite you to sit with me for a moment and reflect on something I believe we all need to be reminded of. Mature love isn't about feeding the ego. It's about creating a space where two people can learn, grow, and walk through ignorance together. I once heard a Buddhist woman in her 50-second speak after a difficult divorce. She said, "Master, when I loved before, it was all about feeling special. I wanted him to understand me, make me happy, put me at the center. But in the end, I was exhausted. And he left not because he didn't love me, but because he could no longer be himself." Have you ever been there? We often enter relationships hoping the other person will fill in what's missing. A sense of safety, validation, unconditional love. But when love revolves only around each person's unmet needs, the ego eventually clashes, and what was once beautiful begins to break. In Buddhism, we call this craving attachment, not just physical desire, but the yearning to be made whole by someone else. The more we rely on others to complete us, the farther we drift from real spiritual maturity. Mature love doesn't say, "I need you to make me happy." It says, "I'm learning how to love with a heart that's walking the path. And if you're willing, we can walk through the dark together without blaming, without running away." I once met a couple in their 62nd. Nothing about them looked romantic. They didn't hold hands in public or give gifts on special occasions. But when they sat down to talk, they shared stories of getting through illness together, meditating side by side, studying the Dharma, and owning their emotions instead of projecting them on each other. The wife said, "Master, sometimes I get really angry at my husband. But instead of blaming him, I try to sit in meditation and ask, where is this anger coming from? Is it tied to an expectation that wasn't met? And when I finally calm down, I can tell him what I need without causing harm." That is mature love. It's not about who's right or wrong. It's about saying, I see the ignorance in myself and I'm trying to work through it. In the Samyutta Nikaya, the Buddha taught, a person with right view and mindfulness can still live in the world and yet walk beyond suffering. Love can be that kind of path. If both people are willing to look inward instead of always looking outward for blame, I want you to imagine this. Love is a flame, and each person is a lamp being refilled daily with understanding, compassion, patience, and personal responsibility. If only one person tends the flame, the light will flicker. But if both learn to protect it, that light becomes steady enough to guide them through even the darkest seasons. Now, I'm not saying mature love is free of conflict. Of course, there will be challenges. But the difference is this. When conflict arises, we don't try to win. We pause, we listen, and we grow together. Dear friend, if you're in a relationship right now that feels exhausting, don't rush to ask, Why won't they change? Instead, turn the question inward. Am I loving with my ego or with awareness? Am I truly practicing with them or just hoping to be satisfied? Because only when both people turn inward can love become a true spiritual practice. A place where living together isn't just about feeling good, but about helping one another shine a little brighter day by day, for them and for yourself. Have you ever seen an elderly couple walking hand in hand through a park? Still talking, still quietly caring for each other, and found yourself letting out a soft sigh. They're so lucky. But today, I'd like to invite you to look a little deeper. Maybe it's not just luck. Maybe it's the quiet blossoming of ripened good karma, the fruit of seeds they've been planting in this life, or maybe in lifetimes long before. There's a simple but often overlooked truth in Buddhism. Nothing in life is random. No one shows up in your life, stays beside you, and walks with you through the years. Without a cause, without a karmic bond, and without a shared blessing. I once spoke with a man in his late 62nd. He told me, "Master, my wife, she's not perfect, you know. But strangely, after more than 40 years together, we still respect each other. When I'm tired, she knows. When she's sad, I feel it. No need for many words. And no one needs to be right." I smiled and said, "You're not just lucky. At some point, perhaps in this life or another, you planted a very wholesome seed. And now, you're simply harvesting its fruit." Someone once came to me in frustration. "Why do I keep meeting people who hurt me? I didn't do anything wrong. Why is love always so hard?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I invited them to sit and look deeper at how we choose people, at how we react when conflict arises, at how we try to control instead of learning to let go. And then I said, marriage is not a lottery. It's a mirror showing you the law of cause and effect. Your partner doesn't just reflect your love. They reflect your life lessons, your past karma, and the seeds you've once sown. Maybe you once loved someone deeply in a past life, selflessly, unconditionally. And now they've returned not as a past lover, but as your spouse, to walk with you again. Or maybe you once betrayed someone, caused harm, broke trust. And so, in this life, love comes, and then it leaves, giving you the chance to relearn the lessons of compassion, understanding, and responsibility. The Buddha once said, "All beings are the owners of their karma, heirs to their karma, born of their karma, related to their karma, and live supported by their karma." That means every relationship you have is simply a reflection of the seeds you've planted. So, if you're blessed to have a partner who understands you, walks beside you, and loves you without needing you to be perfect, then you are receiving a gift far more valuable than anything money can buy. The gift of karmic blessing. And blessings like that don't come from chance. They come from every small act you've ever done. A moment of deep listening without judgment. A time you chose patience. A time you forgave when you could have turned away. Whether in this life or a past one, good seeds ripen in their own time, quietly, faithfully. Dear friend, if your marriage or relationship today doesn't yet look like what you had hoped, please don't lose heart. Because right now, you're still planting. The seed you plant today may blossom in a future life, or maybe just a few years from now, when you've become just a little more awake, a little more kind, a little more grateful. Then someone aligned with your growth will come. So don't underestimate the small things you do today. A kind word. A moment of silence when you could have argued. A quiet act of forgiveness without needing anything in return. Every one of those is a wholesome seed. And wholesome seeds, they never go to waste. They're just waiting for the right season to blossom into what people will call luck. You see, a good marriage doesn't come from wishing. It doesn't come from fate. It comes from a heart that knows how to plant goodness starting now. So if today you have the chance, start planting a seed of understanding, a seed of compassion, a seed of empathy. And one day, you'll realize love doesn't come from magic. It comes from the seeds of kindness you've been quietly watering with your own heart. I want to invite you to pause for a moment and think about someone in your life, someone who once hurt you the most. Maybe it was someone you loved deeply, but they walked away without a word. Maybe it was a family member, a close friend, or even your life partner, someone who made you lose faith in love. And I know at some point you asked yourself, why me? I tried to live kindly, so why did I meet someone like that? Is this some kind of karma? I understand those questions. I've heard them from so many people, especially older ones who came to me looking for comfort and answers. But today, I want to gently offer you this thought. That person didn't come into your life to punish you. They came to show you something deeper, something you may have never wanted to face. Your own ego. Have you ever noticed? The people who hurt us the most are often the ones who push us to the edge of transformation. They force us knowingly or unknowingly to turn inward and ask hard questions. What am I still clinging to? Am I expecting too much? Am I trying to make someone love me a certain way just to feel whole? I once spoke with a Buddhist woman in her 62nd. She told me, back when I was young, I was quick-tempered. My husband stayed quiet, kept everything to himself. It made me feel abandoned. We fought so much. We almost divorced. But then I found Buddhism and realized he wasn't wrong. I had just placed too many expectations on one person without showing myself the same compassion I was demanding from him. I looked at her and said, then the one who hurt you was also the one who taught you the art of letting go. There's a profound teaching in Buddhism that I always carry with me. Everything is a condition. Those who come, those who leave, those who hurt us, are all teachers in our spiritual journey. Have you ever thought about this? That if it weren't for a moment of heartbreak, you might have never stopped to look within? If life had only been smooth, would you have learned to forgive? Would you have discovered humility, letting go, compassion? Some lessons can only enter through the door of pain. And some people, only by hurting us or walking away, are the ones who start us on the path to healing. Those who cause us suffering aren't always the enemy. They're like mirrors, reflecting our own ego, our stubbornness, our fears, our inner emptiness. And once we've learned the lesson, you know what? They no longer need to stay because they've fulfilled their role. And when we truly understand that, the resentment softens, the blame fades. We begin to see life not as punishment, but as a journey of awakening. Over the years, I've seen so many people, those who seemed unlucky in love, turn out to be the ones who awakened the earliest. They learned how to live without dependence. They discovered a freedom within, and they began to love others without fear of being hurt again. Dear friend, if someone is causing you pain right now, please don't rush to believe it's punishment. Instead, ask yourself, what is life trying to teach me through this pain? What am I still holding on to too tightly to see clearly? And then, in silence, send that person your gratitude. Because sometimes the one who breaks you is also the one who brings you closest to the light within yourself. If something in this video has touched your heart, please feel free to share in the comments below. A memory, a lesson, a story from someone who once brought you pain. Because maybe, just maybe, your story will become the light someone else is waiting for. And if you found this video meaningful, please like, share, and subscribe to Buddhism Seeds. So together, we can continue planting seeds of awakening, one day at a time.